Well, hello everyone, and welcome to One Civil Law. Thank you for joining me. For today's story, we join our friend, Dr. Turtleboy himself, to join us to talk a little bit about himself and the Karen Read case. Dr. Turtleboy, of course, most notable in recent memory for breaking information relating to Karen Read, perhaps the most responsible for getting initial attention to the story, and also doing a lot in terms of helping to develop the story and making sure that people are aware of the controversies relating to it. And of course, a person who has gained some controversy of his own, perhaps due to this or perhaps people's dislike of him, sometimes polarizing figure. But thank you for joining me, Dr. Turtleboy.
Thanks for having me, Kurt.
All right, great. So I want to start a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got, just who you are as a person? Give us a quick, 30-second biography. We'll start with that.
I'm a former high school history teacher who started an anonymous blog that kind of blew up, and then I wasn't anonymous anymore. So I quit my teaching job in 2014, and I started writing stories on matters of public concern in the local Massachusetts area. And then suddenly one day in 2023, this story came across my radar, and I looked into it and I dug into it like I always do. And it turned out to be like the story of the century. And then I really kind of blew up. And then here we are now.
That's pretty cool. What did you used to teach?
I was 11th grade United States history.
Oh, there you go. That's a great subject.
Yeah, I loved it. I did. I mean, that was my passion. I love teaching. It was what I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. But then, life throws curveballs at you, and you got to adjust.
That's cool. All right. So you got you had a blog relating to, what was your blog initially relating to?
Well, it was like, honestly, exposing scumbags in a word. Like I would just expose people doing nefarious things, selling their food stamps on Facebook, lying. We had this whole thing about the pumpkin spice mafia, these women who would post on Facebook about how they were almost kidnapped and sex trafficked, and it was always just a lie. But I also did a lot of stories about public corruption, especially a couple stories involving the Massachusetts State Police. In 2017, there was a story involving a judge's daughter who was pulled over by some state troopers in the town that I live in Holden, and she was high and she had heroin on her. And she told the cop who was actually from Canton, this guy, Ryan Skeevior, Trooper Skeevior pulls her over, and she told him, do you know how many dicks I had to suck to get, sorry if I can't say it on your channel, but to get that bag. And then she offered to blow him if he gave her leniency. And he put this all in his report.
You put it in a report? Nice.
Yeah, because that's what he just said what happened. And so she's a judge's daughter, so she's got all this influence, or her dad does. And so the district attorney contacts the colonel of the Massachusetts State Police and says, you need to take out this lie, and it's embarrassing to the judge. You got to take it out. And so they told the trooper, you need to adjust your report. And he refused to do it. He's like, what, the lone clean Massachusetts State Trooper, and he refuses to do it. And because of that, he was disciplined, and a bunch of other troopers were pissed about this. They contacted me. They contacted the Boston Globe first, and they had no interest in it. So then they contacted me because they know I like writing stories about this stuff like this. And I wrote about it, and it turned out to be they've since named this Troopergate. It led to the resignation of the 4 highest ranking members of the state police. And actually, that was the barracks that I was arrested and processed in, was that same state police barracks.
Okay, well, that's pretty notable. So you have been aware of issues relating to less than stellar policing going on in the area.
Yeah, but I'm not like an anti-police person by any means. Like if you look at my track record with coverage, especially in 2020 and in 2014 during the Michael Brown riots and Alton Sterling riots, and then of course the George Floyd riots, I was firmly on the side of law enforcement, like pretty like solidly, like very rare. Like I thought that they were being unfairly maligned and blamed for things that weren't their fault, and for the fault of like a police officer in Minneapolis. I don't know what that has to do with the Worcester Police Department, and so I was a pretty big backer of the police, and I still don't have a problem with the police at all. I just don't like these police. I don't like corrupt
Fair
police.
enough.
I don't like the guy I saw on the stand today.
Yeah, well, that's one of many interesting stories relating to this case and other cases, as I'm sure you can appreciate. The police and issues relating to that at multiple stages is truly distressing. The evidentiary issues are deeply problematic, and I can't believe at some points they don't just feel shame, but I guess they are not capable of that.
You know, it's like I've asked myself that many times, like, why are they going through with this? Like, why? And it's like, it's just politics. It's like if you're an elected district attorney, you have a cop murdered in your county, and
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to deliver a conviction. Like, that's horrible politics. You have to deliver a conviction. His family is counting on it. You know, you have to come through. And so it's too late. Like, by the time I got hold of the story, it was 15 months into it. Karen Reed was the bad guy in this, and they're not going to suddenly be like, oh, actually the bad guys are the witnesses that we've put all our faith in and testified in front of the grand jury. They're actually the bad guys, so we're going to switch it up. No, they were pot committed at that point, and they weren't backing down.
So do you remember what first brought your attention to Karen Reed? Because as you say, it was 15 months into it. So was it just, do you happen to be reading an article about it, or was there press about it? Was there something about it that made you think that there was potentially a corruption angle to it? Were you just covering because it was a big story? How did you sort of first become interested?
Well, it wasn't a big story. That's the thing. It's like, so when it first happened,
maybe it was locally. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, when it first happened in January of 2022, it was this, it was a headline story on the news. I remember it happened pretty well, and I looked into it, and I didn't write about it because there was no angle to take on it. Like, it was not. I'm like, usually I write about, is there some like, if Karen Reed was some person who, almost 9 times out of 10, when someone kills a cop, they have a long track record of scumbaggery where some judge has allowed them off I'll give you another chance. We'll give you another chance. There's always a story like that. Right. And that's the kind of stuff I like to write about. So when it happened, I looked into Karen Reed. I'm like, well, I don't even know what I'm going to say about this. This is unfortunate. Like, this seems like a horrible accident, and this woman clearly doesn't have like a criminal record or anything. So I don't even know what angle I go. She probably feels horrible about it, And that was and I honestly forgot about it. And I didn't even know she was indicted after that. The news didn't really cover it that much after that. The story went away. And then all of a sudden, 15 months later, in April of 2023, April 12th was the day I saw a story on NBC 10 about something about a Google search, Jennifer McCabe's Google search. And I briefly read it in between doing other stuff. And I'm like, well, I'll put this on my list of things I need to look into, because I do a lot of stories every week, and kind of memory hold it. And then a few days later, I got a message from this guy named Brian Johnson. He was a former Duxbury police officer who used to work with John O'Keefe. He worked at Duxbury as well. And he's like, look at this guy, John, I used to work with, when he was a rookie, and blah, blah, blah. Good guy. He was killed. They're blaming it on the girlfriend, but honestly, it doesn't look like her. And he sent me Alan Jackson's affidavit, which he had filed a couple days prior in the case. And it's like 94 pages long. I read the whole thing cover to cover and was just shocked, and I'm like, and everything he said, it wasn't just some lawyer pontificating.
Sure.
It was everything he was saying was like, here's Appendix B. Here's this document backing this up. Here's his Apple Health data. Here's Jennifer McCabe's call log. It all added up. And like, once it hits you that, holy shit, they killed a cop. A cop killed another cop. And then they framed an innocent woman. When you have that like aha moment, like, holy shit, I'm sitting on the story of the century here, and no one's reporting this. So, it was a public filing. Anyone could have reported on it. And so I jumped into it, and, I write things every day, but this one blew up. I got like over 500,000 page views on the first day, just from the first article I've published on. I've published over 500 cents. And then, my live show used to get like, I do a recap of my stories of the week, and I would get like 300 or 400 people, for a live stream. And then my first one on Karen Reed, I got over 2,000. I'm like, I'd never broken 1,000 before. And now it's like, I'm getting 10,000 just because I thought I'd write about it once and it would be over, but I wrote about it and it just never ended. Like, it's like, they just keep adding shit on more. They just keep doubling down on the corruption. And I just have stuff to write about. And then 6 months later, I'm arrested, and now I become part of the story inadvertently, which was not the plan, but here we are.
It's really interesting that I mean, all parts of that are kind of interesting that, basically you just happened upon a public filing, as, sometimes you do, and you think there's something there and you report on it. And then what really caught my attention is basically the first time you did a stream about it, that the public was already responding to it. So, because you say that it wasn't a big story before sort of you got involved, it was buried by the news or they lost attention to it, and these were just sort of random public filings that no one were really paying attention to. So do you think there was something about your initial presentation of it that drew people to it as strongly as it did? Do you think it was just that people saw it and they couldn't believe what was happening? Why do you think the story resonated the way it did when you were first reporting on it?
Both. I think that number one, the story itself sells. Like it's a crazy story. You couldn't script a story like this. Like again, a cop was murdered.
Maybe you could have, because someone did, right?
And a cop was murdered inside another cop's house, and then they blamed this successful, attractive woman for it. And she takes it for 10 for, and then she hires a Hollywood attorney, who blows the whole thing up. And it's just like, you can't come up with the crazier storyline than that. So the story does sell itself, but not to sell myself short, but like, I like to think that I add a little pizzazz and spice to this thing, and my off-brand, kind of off the hook, whatever you call it, whatever, Howard,
a little shock.
Yeah. Shock, whatever you want to call it, comedic value to it. Like, that's what I do. I take a sexy story like that, and I tell it like it is. I tell you how I feel about this, and I'm completely biased. I'm not one of these reporters that pretends that like, oh, I'm looking at this and like, I want to report both sides. I'll report both sides if I feel like both sides are offering me a competing interest here. But when one side is offering me facts and evidence, and the other one's offering me a pile of shit and a bunch of comments that she made on Dateline, right, then I'm not going to be like, yeah, these things are equal.
Well, no, I certainly agree with that. And I have a saying on my channel that judgment is not the same thing as bias, because Lady Justice has scales in her hands. If the scales are supposed to be lopsided, that's not bias. That's just judgment. I mean, that the scales are what they are. They weigh what it weighs.
Right.
So if you look at the evidence and you're like, well, here's just, in some sense, a fair and neutral assessment, but the fair and neutral assessment is this. Reporting anything else would be biased or at least dishonest. So yeah, I tend to agree with that.
Yeah, in all media is biased, whether or not they choose to admit it. But just with this case, I looked into it like that night. A lot of people don't know this. That night, like, I was contacted so I made a post on April 17th announcing on Twitter that, like, holy shit, I'm looking into the story about a cop who was killed inside the home of another cop, and it's a cover up, and the girlfriend is blamed, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And I checked my inbox the next day. Chris Albert had messaged me, and so had Jill Daniels, his sister-in-law, and they were both like, please don't do this. Basically, like, they were followers of mine. They had already liked, a lot of people in this area read my content prior to Karen Read, including them. They were fans. People said that Chris Albert used to have Turtleboy shirts. And so when, like, this was their worst nightmare, actually, one of Julie Albert's text messages to John O'Keefe, which they got from John O'Keefe's Extraction, I've published it. In 2021, John O'Keefe sends Julie Albert a link to one of my articles, right, about a story I'd written in Canton about some middle school girls who were being bullied for, like, supporting police or something like that. And John O'Keefe likes it because cops like my content, and he sends it to Julie Albert. And Julie Albert writes back to him, and I've shown this text. She goes, my biggest fear in life is being featured on Turtleboy. And now she's on, like, every day and saying Bukkake on TV. So, forget where I was going with this, but yeah, it just kind of blew up.
That's really cool. So, I mean, you've been involved in other controversies. I believe you were involved in a controversy as well in Rhode Island at one point.
Oh yeah, I've been sued a bunch of times. I was sued in 2019 by this woman. We called her Failure Swift. I don't know. She was like some scammer. I forget what. She's a nut job, Catherine Narcissi. and I just made fun of her for being ridiculous or stupid or something. She sued me for libel. It was ridiculous. I've been sued for libel many times. I've never lost. And so I took it. A judge in Rhode Island ordered that my blog about her come down, right? Like, you have to take this down. And I contacted the Rhode Island ACLU and I said, this is the government telling me I can't talk. Like, the government is, a judge is telling me I can't write about someone.
Plus,
And
it's a jurisdictional problem.
that's what the ACLU did, is they just moved it to federal court in Providence. So like, it was filed in some district court in Rhode Island, and which has no jurisdiction over me.
Right.
And so they moved it to federal court in Providence. And this woman didn't know how to, it was like a pro se thing. So she didn't even know how to, federal court's a whole different ball game, much more complicated with the pleadings, as you probably know. So won that one.
I like federal court better than state court. I find the pleadings a little more, I like the style. It has a certain
it's more serious
flair to it. That's
it's more serious, as it should be.
Yeah. And the things tend to be a little bit more, a little cleaner. Sometimes state proceedings, they don't tend to go off the rails as much in the federal proceedings, although they can, but they don't tend to.
And are you in Michigan? What state are you in?
No, I'm in Texas.
Oh, Texas. Okay, gotcha. All right.
I currently live in Houston.
I feel like most law tubers are from Michigan for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, we got Nate the lawyer down here who moved from New York to be with me in Houston. Attorney Tom is also in Houston. I'm trying to think where other people are from. Nick Ricada is Minnesota. I think, let's see, Hogue Law, I believe, is Michigan. And yeah, and then we got some people that are overseas. We got Legal Mindset in Korea, Alita's in Europe. We got people all over the place in different specialties. Emily D. Baker, she lives in Tennessee now, I believe. So we got people all around.
So, like, can I address one of the comments? And this is going to come up eventually. Somebody says, I like things like Turtle. I think things like Turtleboy should be brought to the forefront. But Turtleboy lost me with the harassment. So this is obviously like the knock on me, right? Like, he takes it too far, right? He harasses people. I want to be very clear about that. There's a thin line between harassment and journalism, like actual journalism where people go up to you and ask you uncomfortable questions. That's what journalists like used to do. Like, ask your parents about this. Back in the day, journalists used to go up with a microphone, go to your house, knock on your door and say, what's up with all the dead? Is there really dead prostitutes in your garage? Where'd all this money go? What happened here? Blah, blah, blah. And then they shove the door in your face, and then that's it, right? That's what they used to do. That's what I've done here. That's all I've done with the McAlberts is I went up to them in public at a sporting event. I went to Jennifer McCabe's kids' lacrosse game, and they're like, "Oh my God, you went to a lacrosse game? It's a public event. We're in the bleachers, all the way in like the last row. I know she's going to be there, so that's where I'm going to go. Where else am I going to find her? Right? So, because I want to ask her a question. I'm not there to harass her. I'm there to ask her what no one else in the media appears to want to be asking them. Like, the media has this fascination with Karen Read and like asking Karen Read questions. So, no, I want to ask them questions. I want to ask the McAlberts questions. I want to ask the district attorney questions, but none of them want to answer questions. And they're the ones who aren't on trial, who supposedly have nothing to lose from doing this. And none of them want to talk to me. Yet Karen Read is out here with Fifth Amendment rights, with everything to lose. All of her shit is now being used in court against her. All the things she said on there, and she's talking, and that says a lot. That Karen Read is not afraid to talk, but they are.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the lines can get tricky on some of these things, as you well know, and I haven't really dug into your case in order to take a position on the ultimate issue. But there's a First Amendment that protects everybody. And everyone, has some right to, and people have the right not to talk too. So, I mean, you have the right to ask questions, and people have the right to not talk, and people have the right to, their privacy if they want to, be sort of left alone. So, trying to delineate all those lines can get tricky.
But with the privacy, and that's where some of the lines are drawn. And like, so I call them cop killers to their faces. You're allowed to do that.
Yeah, that's an opinion. You're allowed to do that.
You're allowed to do that. So that's not, but they've said that that's witness intimidation, me calling these people cop killers. I went to Jennifer McCabe's house and I knocked on the door. Okay. And her door was wide open for some reason. So I was filming myself and I said, Jen, we mean you no harm. Just want to ask you a question. And you see Jen she's in the house hiding. And I'm like, okay, we see you later. We leave, we walk out, and I ended up getting charged for that because I knocked on her door, which there was no trespassing sign in the yard. You're allowed to do that. I did the same thing at Michael Proctor's house. I rang the doorbell. His kids came to the door and they didn't come. They let the kids come out for some reason. And then I'm like, nobody answered. So I left. And they're like, they told the grand jury, our children are terrified of the turtle man is coming to our house. It's just so ridiculous. These people victimize themselves. None of these people are victims. None of these people are afraid. All I've done is ask them uncomfortable questions about their extremely suspicious behavior. And they have resorted to having the same police who I have accused of being corrupt, who came to my house and arrested me at the bus stop in front of my kids. And they just kind of proved my point for me.
Yeah, I mean, when I haven't watched a lot of it, but I did watch some of, I believe it was either your initial hearings or probable cause hearing. I watched parts of it. And at least part of the one I tuned in, they were suddenly talking about defamation for some reason. And I'm like, well, I thought this was a harassment case, not a defamation case. So why are we talking about defamation? Shouldn't we be talking about harassment? Those are distinct legal issues. So what the hell are we talking about?
Well, what he said was that, he goes, this is the argument that the prosecutor made, that because defamation cases take too long to litigate, that they'd have to hire an attorney and go through the process, and it could take years to get satisfaction. They need satisfaction now. It needs to stop now. So this is why we need to, they actually asked the judge for that, for some sort of provision in my terms of release that I can't defame these people. Who gets to decide what defamation is? That has to be litigated. It has to be adjudicated what defamation is. Like there's a process.
Well, I mean, also it's a pointless order because you aren't allowed to defame people in the first place.
But they wanted to make it criminal.
You're just ordering you to obey the law. That doesn't make any sense.
But they wanted to make it criminal. Defamation is a civil situation. Like if you could sue me for that, you could get a judgment for that, but you can't go to jail for defaming people. And
there are a few states that actually do have criminal defamation still in the books. I don't know if Massachusetts is one of them, but still.
Not to my knowledge. Either way, truth is the ultimate defense. And opinions. Truth and opinions. I'm allowed to have the opinion that Jennifer McCabe helped murder John O'Keefe. I am allowed to think that. I am allowed to say that out loud. And she's allowed to disagree with that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, talking about somebody and talking about people in public, I mean, is perfectly fine. That's certainly not harassment. It's like, yeah, that's not even harassment, even if you had a restraining order to talk about people versus talking to them. That's different.
Quite literally what I've been indicted for is talking about them, peacefully protesting them. I protested outside of their homes. That was the big controversial one on July 22nd, 2023. We had the rolling rally in Canton. We went to the homes of Jennifer McCabe, Michael Proctor, a couple others. I forget a couple other scumbags. And, about 100 people, women and children and elderly. And we're outside there. And I had my megaphone and I just said, this is the house of Michael Proctor. He lied about his relationship with the McAlberts. He did this, he did that, blah, blah, blah. Okay, on to the next house. And that was, I got indicted for that.
Okay, so I have to ask where the name Turtleboy comes from.
So there's this like statue in downtown Worcester. I'm from Worcester, Massachusetts. It's the second largest city in New England. And there's like a funny statue in the back of City Hall of this boy who appears to be having anal sex with a turtle. He's actually releasing the turtle into the wild, but it's actually at his crotch. So it looks like he's fucking it. And the turtle has this like horrible, like, if you just Google Turtleboy statue, it's the funniest statue you've ever seen. And it's
we're putting it on stream now. This is what's happening in our day.
Yeah, you got it. So yeah, that's it's the funny. It's like what people think of when they come to Worcester. You got to see the Turtleboy statue. It's like what we're known for. And so, I'm like, well, I'm from Worcester. I need to create I needed to be anonymous because I was teaching at the time, and you're not really allowed to have controversial opinions as a teacher. Yeah, there it is. So that poor turtle is just. getting it from behind.
That's definitely a interesting look there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be a boy releasing the turtle into the wild.
Yeah, like I think so, or riding it. I don't know what he's doing. That's why we call my followers turtle riders, because we're riding the turtle. You know, I'm telling you, it's like a tourist landmark. People come there, take selfies with the Turtleboy statue. It's a thing. It's the only thing.
I've learned something in my day. I'm not sure I wanted to learn that, but I asked the question, so that's my fault.
And by the way, I forgot to mention too about harassment. Like, two of these people, and this is really important, Jennifer McCabe and Chris Albert, have both applied for harassment being the key word, harassment prevention orders against me. One in May of 2023, the other in September of 2023, and both came forward with the same allegations they're making against me with the witness intimidation, that he did the rolling rally and he's calling me a cop killer and blah, 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 blah. And he's calling me. And the judges in both cases said, I know this makes you uncomfortable, and maybe this is the Webster's definition of harassment. I don't know, but legally in Massachusetts, harassment has a definition, and it means true threats of physical violence. And I'm not seeing that here from the things I'm saying. Like, you can look up anything I'm saying. I'll never threaten anyone. I will never.
Threatening people is bad.
Yeah, and I know the line. It's not my style. I'm not a tough guy. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to be like, I'm going to kick your ass, Seabass, or anything like that. Like, I'm not scared. I will show up and confront anyone on camera. I don't care, but I'm also not there to beat you up. I'm just here to ask you questions, and they all know that. And that's why Massachusetts is the only state in the country where our witness intimidation statute has a provision for emotional harm, not just physical harm. Every other state, it's simple. You can't threaten a witness with physical harm in order to change their testimony. I think we all agree that's a good law, right? Like, you can't have witnesses afraid to testify because some mobster is going to break their leg or something, But Massachusetts has provisions for economic and emotional harm. What is emotional harm? It's the most subjective thing ever. And all of my victims in this case, including Bukaki, they all testified at the grand jury that I made them upset, that I made them sad. That's what Colin Albert said. I made him sad, and that I made him, depressed, that he couldn't eat. And so that's emotional harm.
If I can sue for sadness, I want to sue the entire Commonwealth for sadness relating to this trial. I'm definitely emotionally harmed.
Not just sue. You can get someone arrested for causing you sadness.
Outstanding.
As long as you're a witness. You have to be a witness. So we have a special class.
I'm watching the trial. I'm seeing the depravity happen every day. I'm a witness to the stupid.
If you attended the trial, you would actually qualify into the statute, because it says anyone who is a witness, a family member of a witness, a potential witness, or somebody who plans on attending a criminal proceeding in Massachusetts qualifies as a witness under the statute. And if you make them sad, you are guilty of witness intimidation. And that's why I have been indicted. I made all these people sad. And some of them, like Elizabeth Proctor, is not a witness, but she's a family member of a witness, and I made her sad. And so she was actually she's crazy. So Elizabeth Proctor is worse than her husband. She, early on in my writing, the story was becoming big. Michael Proctor was known as a scumbag, and a lot of people were saying mean things about him online. She's a very loyal wife. And so she starts contacting the employers of people who are saying mean things about her husband and trying to get them fired. I know this because her phone number came up on caller ID at a couple people's workplaces. And I called her and I'm like, hey, this is Aidan from Turtleboy. Are you calling people's workplaces? She clicks, hangs up on me. And so I write about it, and then I put her company's Facebook page on my thing. I'm like, since she likes contacting people's workplaces, here's her workplace. And they said that I was causing her economic harm, and she's the family member of a witness, even though I'm doing the same thing she was doing, trying to get people fired at their job. You know what I mean? So it's like, but I'm not a special class. I'm not a witness. Well, I am now, but before then I wasn't a witness.
You are on the witness list and everything.
But once you get, knighted a witness in Massachusetts, you are a special class of citizen, and the First Amendment no longer exists in your orbit.
Well, I guess I'm coming. You want to split a nap at McCarthy's or Waterfall or something?
I can't go anywhere near CF
Aw.
McCarthy's because if I have a
I
100
heard there's a
yard,
good pizzeria we could go to. Lol.
wouldn't recommend it. So, I mean, last time I went there, I almost got thrown back in jail in March for window intimidation. Did you see that one? I mean,
No, I missed that one.
I've had 2 bail revocation hearings in the last 2 months. In March, we went to CF McCarthy's because we had a gift card, and we went outside afterwards, and Chris Albert's pizza place is right there, and there's like a blinking light in his window, and I've had too many red sangrias, and I'm sitting out, I see the blinking light, and I look in it for like 20 seconds, and then my friend Will the Glarer comes over, and he puts his arms in between me and does like the T-Rex arms, and so we're doing like a bit, like a miming thing, like his hands are going like this. And I'm like, I start talking into the camera, which I don't know is recording me because Massachusetts is a 2-party consent state. You're not allowed to audio record without telling people. So I assume it's not audio recording me. And I'm like, Chris, I am the guy you killed in 1994. Why did you kill me? Because he went to jail for killing a man in 1994. That's a different story. And so anyway, I wake up with a hangover the next day and a new felony charge. I'm like, and that was the day of my motion to dismiss hearing. And I find out that I have been charged with witness intimidation for talking into an empty window. And I didn't even know I was being recorded. And they tried to revoke my bail for that. Luckily, they failed. And then a month later, they try revoking my bail again.
That sounds incredibly stupid. How do you witness intimidate when there's not even a witness there that you're intimidating?
They're like, well, you were directing it at him. That's what they said. He should have known that Chris was going to hear this. How would I know Chris is going to hear that? I didn't know he was recording me. It's illegal to record people.
Yeah, even if you knew that you're being recorded, how would you know that he would then hear? None of that makes any sense.
Yeah, not a lot makes sense up here. I mean, Brian Tully wrote the complaint, and he wanted to have me arrested that day. Luckily, they didn't arrest. They just summonsed me. I was arraigned 2 weeks later. But he actually tried to have me arrested for that. I mean, these people are out for blood with me. They want me locked up. They've put me in once for 60 days, and their goal is to put me back in there because they don't want me covering the Karen Read case. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, you almost kind of hope it's more than that. You hope it's more than just that you have the wrong opinion because, well, we all have the wrong opinion from their point of view. I presumably have the wrong opinion. So
yes,
it's like,
but
why don't they want to put me in jail, or do they? Should I
no
avoid
offense,
the entire state?
Because you don't have the reach I do in Massachusetts. That's the problem. Is I'm way too influential in garnering. I can get a crowd together that can hold a large protest very quickly. They can't do that. I can get thousands of people to come and attend a protest, and because they know I have a lot of sway, with my YouTube audience and my articles and my Twitter account, all that stuff. And so that's why if I was just some guy with 50 followers or something like that, they wouldn't bother with me. It's the fact that I have influence that bothers them.
That you're actually successful and popular.
Right. That's what I'm essentially, and that's what he argued in the recent motion to dismiss with me.
There is that old saying, the customer is never wrong in matters of taste.
Right.
So the fact that people like you, they can't be wrong.
Well, that was actually the argument that they made, was that he is breaking the law with Brian Tully because he said that, he hopes that Brian Tully dies, and he has a large following. So one of his crazier followers might then try to kill Brian Tully to make him happy. Like, that was the actual argument that they made in court.
Which isn't even illegal.
Yeah, it's not. Unless you actually say, go kill him, it's not illegal.
It isn't even illegal if, like you said, generally it would be good for people to kill X, because that's just general advocacy. Like we were talking about that the other day when we were trying to split some of these nuanced differences. But it's not illegal to encourage people in a very generalized way to break the law.
Yeah, I mean, and I haven't even done that. But you're right. If I actually said, like, it would be a good thing if someone killed this person, that's not telling people to kill someone. And I'm not even doing that.
Right. Yeah. It's not incitement. It doesn't mean Brandenburg. You're not soliciting. You're just advocating. So it's like, these lines are fun. And
would it have been better if I said I wanted him to die from cancer or some, like, you know what I mean? Like, or like leprosy? Or like, what is it? Because it was the fire aspect that made it controversial.
Dying of fires, sends a message. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
How
common
about
phrase.
drowning? I hope he drowns, like something like that. Like, is that illegal? Like, where? Please give me the list of things I'm allowed to say and explain to me why I'm not allowed to say them so I don't go to jail. Just let me
You
know.
could always go with I hope he earns $1 million. That seems to be popular with some people.
I hope he stubs his toe. Can I say that? And I hope it like really hurts for a couple days there, and he has a limp.
That
Are you
sounds that
allowed? Are you
sounds
allowed
like
to say?
harm to me, man.
Oh
And
God, you can't even.
now have to worry about stubbing his toe. You're inside his head. That's emotional harm, man.
Yeah,
You can't say the toe tubbing thing.
That's literally what they argued, is that it was an emotional harm on a police. I mean, these are cops. Michael Proctor, well, not a cop anymore. Bukaki, Tully. These are supposed to be the people protecting us from bad guys, from the worst of the worst, and they're out here testifying in front of grand juries saying they're scared because of things I'm saying on my YouTube show. I mean, then
Yeah,
quit.
aren't you guys supposed to be made of sterner stuff up there? I didn't know that you guys up there were a bunch of pussies.
We're not. I mean, at least the police apparently are. I don't know. I thought police were supposed to be tough, and I, as a man, I would just be embarrassed to say this stuff. Brian Albert had to say it. Colin Albert, Mr. Tough Guy Bang Bang, had to get in front of a grand jury, in front of a bunch of strangers, and had to say, I'm scared of Turtleboy. How humiliating is that?
I don't feel particularly scared of you. So
You shouldn't be. I'm harmless, freaking harmless. You know what I mean? Not a single person in any of my cases has had a cut, a scratch, a bruise, a broken bone, nothing. It's just a bunch of hurt feelings. It's all it is.
yeah. So as you were sort of bringing attention to the case initially, what from that time you first had that first real successful stream to the time of the first trial, how long was that interval basically?
So it was about a year, I think. Yeah, actually, exactly a year. Like, first article was April 18th.
There you go.
Trial was April 16th.
All good things happened in April, right?
Yeah, I had an arrest, an indictment, and an incarceration in between.
That's cool. So you had let's say first major exposure in April of 2 years ago, I guess now, and then you have the ramp up to the trial, and the trial starts, and so that whole like period. What was that period like for you as things were escalating and getting started?
Chaotic.
And more and more people were turning in.
It was just crazy because like I'd been writing about it for so much, and then it was just like the trial itself was just like the orgasm. You're like, holy shit, we've been building up for this whole thing. I've been writing about these people for so long. I'd never seen Brian Albert in the flesh. I'd never seen Michael Proctor in the flesh. And then one after another, they just called in. And it's all happening. They're lying right in front of me in person, and it's great theater and it's great TV. And now the whole world is watching. And yeah, I mean, I blew up during the trial. My subs doubled, my Twitter followers doubled, because it was the biggest murder. All the true crime people got into it, and true crime is crazy. I mean, true crime is like, talk about a cult. Like, people that are in true crime, they're dedicated to this shit. They get real into it. And so I happen to be at the center of the biggest true crime story. And consequently, as a result of that, I blew up.
That's really, really cool. How much of the first trial were you able to actually attend in person?
A decent portion. I wasn't allowed in so first I wasn't accredited at first. And then for like the first 7 or 8 days, and then I got my journalist pass. And nice. My first day in there was, Julie Albert was up. And when I was in court, she was definitely flustered by the fact that I was in there. It's like a small courtroom. She could see me, and they asked her, and you probably saw this, where she said Trooper Bukaki. She said Bukaki not once, but twice. And everybody in the courtroom looked at me, because that's my name. I named him Bukaki, right? His mama named him Yuri, but I named him Bukaki. And so the fact that Julie Albert's on the stand calling him Bukaki means she watches my show. And so I'm like, oh my God, did that just happen? And she realized it. She turns red. And after that, they took a break, and they came back, and Adam Lally announces they have filed a motion to have me removed from the courtroom for the indicted witnesses. And she allows it. After a brief argument with my lawyer, they stopped the whole trial to do this. And she said, yeah, you're going to be removed for the indicted witnesses. She then changed that I could be in there for Proctor and Bukaki, because that's just embarrassing for two cops to say that I can't testify with this guy in the courtroom. You're cops. So I wasn't there for Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Brian Albert Jr., Chris Albert, Jennifer McCabe, which is too bad, Matt McCabe, and Julie Nagel.
Did you miss out on Trooper Paul?
Oh, I was there for Trooper Paul.
Trooper Paul's the best. I miss that
Paul
guy.
was the best.
He's the greatest.
That was, and the juror reactions to Trooper Paul and Michael Proctor were just fucking awesome. Like, I was so convinced walking. I'm like, this is gonna be the quickest acquittal.
It really should have been.
It should have been. I know.
And I don't understand. I listened to significant parts of your interview with that juror, and he said at least some of the people in the room, I don't think he was talking about himself, but some of the people in the room were like, well, Karen Read was there, John O'Keefe was there, therefore Karen Read did it. And I'm like, I'm going to need some additional steps in this analysis.
She was drunk. That's the big thing, is like, she was drunk. And that just shows that, like, people will judge you judge your character. They will look past the facts, the evidence. And that's the number one thing Karen Read doesn't have going for her, is people don't like her. I mean, I like her, but a lot of people don't. And she has to overcome that hurdle. The faces that she makes in court, the interviews that she gives, these aren't helping her. And I don't know if she I know she knows this, but she just can't help herself sometimes.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I don't, the whole thing for me, it's like, as I say, like, for me, I just like to keep my life simple. And it's like, sometimes people ask me, like, what do you think happened? And I'm like, I don't have to figure that out. It's like, my life is really simple. Like, within the confines of Commonwealth versus Reed, the only thing I have to figure out is whether the state has proven each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm.
That is my only mission in life. Was she framed? Are the police corrupt? These are someone else's questions.
Yeah, they're
like,
the FBI's. Those are the FBI's.
Keep my life
questions.
simple, man.
Right. Those are the FBI's questions. I mean, that's what they would look into. As far as the court goes, and you and I go, and the jurors go, it's like, have you proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Karen Read ran over John O'Keefe with her car on purpose and killed him? Yes or no?
Putting aside the many evidentiary problems with the solo cups and leaf blowers and evidence logs.
Yeah, I don't even care about
testing.
That stuff. Yeah.
Putting aside all those issues is like the simplest way to resolve this issue for me is, how does a 7,000-pound vehicle going 25 miles an hour hit this guy with enough force to cause him to fly through the air and disable him, but also simultaneously not cause any broken bones, torn ligaments, or any bruising? How are both those things possible at the same time?
Well, Hank Brennan has come up with an even more complicated way. He was actually on his feet for 20 seconds now. This is the craziest part. His new theory is that John was struck in the arm and then, did a jig or something for 20 seconds, and then looked at his phone, read a text message for Jennifer McCabe, throws his phone down, lies down on top of it, and says, I'm going to die now. That's their theory. That's fucking crazy. That I cannot believe that this is happening with, like, in a real courtroom, that this is what they're actually saying is happening, and that there is any adult human being out there that would entertain this as plausible.
Yeah, I have questions. I have many questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and there was no disturbances in the snow, from his path, and I've seen the pictures of the snow, like when they went to go Karen's house. It's like, this is a pansy ass snow, blizzard my ass. I can see green, when they went to go to Karen Reed's house that next morning, in the trees and stuff like that.
Well, that time of day. Well, by the time they went to Karen's house, there was a good amount of snow in Dighton, but at John's house, there wasn't that much snow yet at whatever, 8 o'clock, whatever. But yeah, like, there was hardly any snow when the initial incident allegedly happened. When all those people left that house at 1:30 in the morning and drove right by where the body was.
No one saw the body.
No
one saw the body at all. They couldn't find any glass at all initially in the search.
Taillight. They found the glass. They found the cocktail glass.
Which
is transparent. Which is transparent and see-through, and thus harder to find. But that big bright red thing, which, by the way, stands out. Any New Englander knows that, like, white fresh snow illuminates everything. It doesn't make it harder to find. It makes everything easier to find. It's because it's in contrast to every color,
right?
Especially red.
Yeah, it'll make everything else stand out. When everything's white, anything not white is going to kind of pop up, right, by comparison.
And I hope Alan Jackson says that in his closing, like kind of, has that because he's not from here. And I hope he says something like it reminds me of My Cousin Vinny when he's like, every Southerner about the grits, about like, oh, every Southerner knows that grits takes 20 minutes to make whatever. And I hope he says something like, you guys are New Englanders, and I know what it's like with snow. When you throw taillight on top of snow, you're going to see it. And they're telling you otherwise, but you know better because you've lived here your entire lives. So quit this woman.
Yeah, I mean the whole case is full of stupid, and just listening to these witnesses and the police investigations and the things that they did and didn't do and the lack of standards, it's just like this is just embarrassing on every level. It's like I don't know what's going on over there, but this is all shambles.
It's not
So
good.
I've read Encyclopedia Brown and Hardy Boys.
Oh, I love
stuff like that.
Encyclopedia Brown.
I'd like I'll give the investigation a go. I could do at least as good.
Encyclopedia Brown is 10 times the investigator that Yuri Buchanan and Michael Proctor is. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. So
he would have Encyclopedia Brown would have searched the house.
Well, it would have at least asked.
He would have asked.
I mean, it's like, yeah, we couldn't have gone a warrant. I'm like, first of all, you probably could have. Second of all, did you ask? Do you mind if we poke in? Do you mind if we step in? It's cold outside. Do you mind if we step in and we talk inside your lobby or something? I mean, come on.
Yeah, you
Basic
mind if we
Police 101, guys.
Have a look around. They're going to bust our balls. They're going to say it's favoritism if we don't. Can we just look around, Bri? You don't mind, right? And then he would probably be like, no, I'd rather you didn't. And then red flags would go up and say, what the fuck's going on here? But they didn't even ask.
Yeah. But like this idea that because she was drinking and she said some mean things is like, I'd like a little bit more for the murder conviction, if you don't mind. I'd like it to make sense. And
well,
it's just like the physics and lack thereof. And then of course we got Arca, last time basically like probably the best. It's not that they're God, but they're pretty good. They investigate the Challenger explosion. They tend to know what they're doing.
They have
contracts. Like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense to us. We don't buy it. I'm like, yeah, I tend to believe the Arca people.
They have contracts from the Department of Defense and the NHL. Ever heard of them? Like these are like those they're good enough for those organizations, but they're not good enough for Hank Brennan. I mean, give me a break with these guys. Those guys were brilliant, and I can't wait for Hank Brennan to try to outdo them, to try to because those guys are going to smoke him, and they're going to make the jury feel bad.
And they're neutral because they weren't initially hired by either party.
Well, Hank's going to try to paint it that they weren't. He's going to try to paint it that they're hired guns like Ian Whiffen and Jessica Hyde, who I'm glad that Bob Alessi pointed out. Like, you've been paid too, haven't you? I wish he asked how much, though.
At this point, I'll do it for free just as a nephew, but it's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there.
I'd pay her just to stop talking, so I never have to hear the sound of her voice again. I would throw money at her. Here's $50. Can you shut up and never talk again? That'd be great.
You mean the computer expert from yesterday?
Yes.
And what the heck, dude? I don't know what it is. I have no memory of her testifying at the first trial.
She was on Zoom.
Like, it should be refreshing my recollection. I was like, I've got nothing. I've got no recollection
because she was on Zoom. That was the day the camera accidentally caught a juror on film. And Auntie Bev shut the camera down that day, and so you could only watch it on Zoom, and it was Jessica Hyde.
Oh, that's why then, because I wouldn't have watched it on Zoom.
Yeah,
I was that's why, because I never saw her testify the first time. That must be it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, because I was like, man, why is this woman not popping up in my mind? I would have thought I would have remembered her, but it's like a pepperoni pizza.
Oh my God, that analogy! You can make Michael Morrissey hungry. I mean, it's like
something waffles.
She tried to be like relatable with that and whatever. And there was just too many missing pieces.
You see, every hole in the waffle is like a bit of memory. And if you put syrup in the hole, it's like a 1. And so you can encode digital data inside the waffle.
Like, she thought that would make sense to this jury. And like, let me talk to them in a way they'll get it. It's like, lady, that you were better off just talking nerd code talk. This makes no sense to me whatsoever. Like, wait a minute. So she's like, the chicken sandwich, the pizza, and something else is over here. and then you got the waffles in this room, and then you say you don't want the pepperoni, so the pepperoni's with the waffles. What the hell are you talking
How
about?
is that woman a Marine? How is that possible?
She's a Marine? I didn't even know that. I
Yeah,
missed
she's
that
a
part.
Marine veteran. She served 6 years in the Marines doing like avionics logistics.
I'm going to be honest. When they start talking at the beginning about their, like the first 5 minutes of every witness, I zone out because I'm like,
Fair
I
enough.
don't even want it. Like, let's get going with the testimony. I don't need the whole meet and greet with your history and all that.
But she doesn't hold herself with any confidence at all. It's like, how's this woman a Marine?
Let me get my charger. My computer's about to die. 2 seconds.
No problem. How you guys doing in chat? We're having fun. Thanks for the super chats, and thanks, by the way, for the 4,700 of you who are here. By the way, if you wouldn't mind going to my stream that's scheduled for tomorrow and hitting that like button, it would really help with discovery. If my mods would be so kind as to provide a link for that for tomorrow so they can open a new tab and hit the like button, I will take it. Thank you. And by the way, you can become a member for only 99 cents a month. It's literally as least as YouTube will let me charge you. So if you wouldn't mind hitting the join button, throw a buck my way. I will sing for you.
There we go. All right, we're good.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, this whole thing is yeah. And then there's this rumor now that's been suggested by a couple people that they're not even going to call Proctor. And I'm like, I'm not even sure how that's possible.
It's not a rumor. It's confirmed. I can officially confirm that without any doubt in my mind. No,
you heard it from the DA themselves?
Not from the DA. Even better source than that.
What, from Proctor?
No. So Proctor's not testifying. Tully's not testifying. Brian Albert's not testifying. Brian Higgins, Colin Albert, Joseph Paul, and I'm also told possibly Irene Scortibello, the medical examiner, all not testifying.
How do you? Okay.
Well, he's just replaced them all. So he didn't like the other medical examiner because she said the cause of death is kind of undetermined. So what does he do? He got his own medical examiner, Dr. Isaac Wolf. He's on the list. He doesn't like the crash reconstructionist, Joseph Paul, for obvious reasons. And he has gotten a new crash reconstructionist named Judd Welcher, who's going to be going next week. So he's just and he's like, okay, what could we replace Proctor with? Bukkake. He's just replacing problematic witnesses and that, or just not calling them. Like, what value did Brian Albert or Brian Higgins give to the prosecution last trial?
Not really. Not really.
Like, so it's, I mean, it does. I mean, I don't know why they call him to begin with. I mean, I get why he's not calling these people, but it says a lot that the prosecution in this case isn't calling their lead detective, their medical examiner, all the really important people, their crash reconstructionist, and the eyewitnesses, the people who were there that night. They're not calling any of them. Why? Who does that if you're not hiding something?
But the defense almost certainly will, because they're just incredibly embarrassing.
But you know, and you would know more than this than me, that I believe you're limited and your kind of hands are tied a little bit more when it's your witness, isn't it?
Not really. I mean, the only thing that you could be limited by in principle is whether or not you can ask leading questions or not. But someone like Proctor is a police officer, so declaring him to be a hostile witness should be fairly trivial. So the only practical difference is whether or not I can ask leading questions or not.
Can they get him to read his messages? That's the big thing with Proctor, those text messages. Can they force Michael Proctor to read his text messages like Adam Lally forced him to?
Yeah. And if he doesn't, I'll read his testimony into the record from the last trial. It was sworn.
Can you do that?
Okay. It's like, that's fine. We'll just go through your testimony and like, isn't it true in a previous thing that I asked you this question? Please read this answer. You know, I can just literally do it that way. We can do this the hard way.
Yeah. It's the defense will put up a much more robust defense. Their defense last time was like, well, we're winning by a lot, so we're just going to take a knee and end this one and just ARCA, all set, see you later, quit, see you. And then it didn't work out that way. So now they realize that they need to put on a much more robust defense. They took 2 days last time. 2 days.
Yeah, that's right.
We expect this one to be at least 2 or 3 weeks.
I think the defense almost certainly will call Proctor, because the fact that he's been thrown off the force because of this case is just like, you know, how, and the thing is, if you as the defense get to call him, you get to make it as painful as possible. That's why, like, it doesn't make sense to me, because the prosecution ideally would like to do a couple things. Ideally, they'd like to make him just go away, but they can't really do that. not for least of reasons that he testified at the last trial. And if he even if he pled the fifth, he's just now a witness that's unavailable, and I can use his prior sworn testimony and read that into the record because there was an opportunity by both sides to examine and cross-examination. I can just have someone read his entire testimony into the record.
Who can read that? Who could read that? How would that work? Somebody just reads.
I don't know. It just gets it. Anybody. We'll just get someone on the stand to read his part.
You can do that. You can just have. Who? You would just call any jamoke up and say, read Michael Proctor's testimony?
Yeah, I mean, usually it's a court official, some court official who's going to sit on the stand and do it. But yeah, there's ways to do it procedurally.
She pretends like a first trial never happened. She makes them refer to it as like the previous hearing, and you're not even allowed to reference a previous trial in her courtroom or mention the fact that the FBI was involved. Like, that's the crazy elephant in the room, is this whole another law enforcement agency that you were contacted by. You can't mention, oh yeah, it's the feds.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of understand that because it's could be prejudicial either way. Like, in the same way that it wouldn't be fair if in some universe ARCA was testifying for the prosecution, to mention that they were also recruited by the FBI would be like perhaps unfair and sort of, making them like look better than they are. And it's an independent agency by an independent sovereign. So I didn't think that part was as crazy, but we'll all pretend the first trial never happened.
Yeah, I mean,
that's fine.
It's just the fact that the investigation itself was investigated just seems somewhat valid.
If they need someone to play Proctor, I'm available. I'll come on. Can I wear my hat? I'll come on. I'll play Proctor. That's fine.
You're gonna have to shave your head. No hats allowed.
I'm willing to do it for the cause.
Yeah. It is amazing, these Conan. I mean, at least Bukaki's got hair. He's shaped like a Tetris piece, but like he does have hair, so I'll give him that. But seeing him up on the stand today was just like peak arrogance. And I was not in the courtroom today. I didn't win the lottery. There's like a lottery for media every week. I didn't win it, so I didn't get to see his reaction. But I spoke to Jessica Machado and other people who were inside the courtroom, and they told me today that for the first time, like, jurors are making the kind of faces that they made last trial, like.
No, I believe that.
Yeah,
I think Jackson made a mistake, at least in my humble opinion, with the way he treated the early witnesses. I think he came off, at least the way it seemed to me, as way too aggressive. He was fighting too hard over too little, and I think perhaps came off as a bully. I thought, his style was much more appropriate today because there's a lot more there, that he can actually get to. So the juice was much more worth the squeeze, and also was great because I sort of realized after a while that Jackson actually didn't care what any of the answers were, because any possible answer would be great. Like, if he's like, did Proctor behave ethically? Like, yes or no.
That's an easy one for me. That's an easy one.
But if he says yes, I win. If he says no, I win. Either answer is great because, but ultimately it'll speak for itself and show him to be a liar. So this whole like evasive thing that he's trying to do, I think it's not working.
Like, was that his plan?
I just could sit back and like, just any answer, all the answers are equally good.
So like Bukaki must have prepped a lot with, Brennan with this. And so they must have gone over, here's what Jackson's going to ask you. He's going to grill you about this. Here's what you're going to say. And so like his plan was just to filibuster and just be like, well, just never answer the question and pretend like you don't know who Michael Proctor is, and then make him read all the reports to you out loud and show you who signed the reports and this and that. Like, that was crazy. Like,
I like that. I like that because I was like, I know the answer to every question. It was great for a while.
Yeah, Michael Proctor was the answer.
I'm the smartest man ever. I was like, I know the answer to every question. Put me in.
And so did Bukaki. When he got up there and he was like, when he actually read the text message from Proctor, the one about the retarded client's phone, and he asked him, he said, do you know who's sending those text messages? And he's like,
it doesn't
not quite sure. Motherfucker, everybody in the world knows who sent those text messages, including you. Like, you're lying. Why are you like, that's how I know this was a cover up. And that's how I would bet my life on it and everything. The fact that man could get up on the stand today and say he didn't know who those text messages came from tells me he has no qualms with lying under oath. He has no qualms whatsoever he is a dishonest person. And dishonest people, if you're willing to do something like that, you have no problem covering up a murder. You have no problem looking the other way and pinning it on the girl. These are unethical, immoral people. And that, I think that's, you asked earlier, like, why are people like, how people come to me because I'm saying what's in their minds. Like, this is how normal people think when they see this shit. When they're watching this shit today, they're like, that guy's a fucking liar. That guy's full of shit. And I say that. NBC doesn't say that. Nobody else says that. They're just like, ooh, Michael Buchanan said this today, and here's how Jackson said. They just report what happened, whereas I report what people are thinking.
Well, I mean, you're certainly entitled to an opinion about what's happening, and let me ask you, what do you think is going on with the people protesting or on the other side of this equation? Because I've certainly seen, occasionally people go up to them. It's like, all right, I just like
Go up
it's
to
like,
who?
well, no, I mean, I apologize. I just like generalized like news reports, as one does. I see, some news station interviewing someone who's protesting to convict Karen Read, for example. And I'm just trying to figure out like what is going through these people's minds. Like, what am I missing, or what are they seeing that I'm not seeing? Because
Well,
I always want to try to get inside these people's heads.
it's a good question. And what's going on inside of 90% of their heads, and I'm not exaggerating, is I don't like Turtleboy. That is literal. Like the vast majority of people who have been anti-Karen Read from the beginning have some sort of previous beef with me. The Food Stamp 5 who showed up, the first 5 people who showed up June 28th and disrupted our peaceful protest outside the court. All 5 of them have some sort of beef with me. One is an crazy ex who put me in jail. The other's Krusty Panties, who has hated me for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was Twisted Tragedies, who I called out for grifting. Every one of them has a story. And that's all it is. Like, if I said that Karen Read was guilty, they would all be out there with Free Karen Read shirts on. So that's...
Have you thought about switching sides and saying how great the police are and how they're wonderful in every way and how they can do no wrong and how the prosecutor is brilliant? Have you thought about that?
It would be an interesting social experiment, but I can't lie like them. I can't do
Aww.
it. But I know what the result would be if I did.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
But yeah, you're right. Like when they interview these people, they're never there. They showed up for the first time once it was over. Like, it was done. And like 5 of them showed up, the Smurfs. And that's what I mean by the media, is they made it seem like, oh, there's both sides are out here quarreling. There's like 5 of them. They never show up to anything. And there's thousands of us out here every single day. So that's the media is dishonest. And I tell what's really happening out there. And that's why people are, gravitate towards my content.
Has the case in general, or people's hostility towards you, or the criminal charges against you in particular, has that had any impact on you personally? Do you just not care? Has it caused you to reevaluate how you cover things or change things? Has it in any sense intimidated you? Has it emboldened you? How have you personally, psychologically responded to this?
Yes to all those questions. I'd be lying if it said it didn't fuck me up. But jail is traumatizing. There's no other way around it. It permanently scars you. 60 days, it's the longest 60 days of your life. And with me, it's a longer 60 days because they don't put me in Gen Pop. They wouldn't. We asked to be put in there so I could at least talk to people. The time moving so slowly is what drains you. And they put me in medical, like, by myself for 60 days where you just have nothing to do but just count seconds. Like, it's horrible. And it just fucks you up. And it smells horrible in there. Like, it's the worst. And so, like, yeah, certainly, like, I am everything I do now, I worry, like, am I going to go to jail over this? Like, today I'm in the buffer zone and I see this guy named John DePietro there, who is he's a cartoon character. He's a joke. He's in court every day tweeting about how awesome Hank Brennan is. And Hank Brennan is killing them. The score is 12-0. And he's Karen Read is a murderer and blah, blah, blah. And he yelled something at Karen Read last month. And he yelled something about, like, Karen, do you think OJ was framed? Something like that. And so that, if I did that, that would be witness intimidation, like yelling at a potential witness, causing them harm. And so I saw John in the buffer zone today. He's doing a little stream, and I go up to him with a camera and hey, John, why are you lying so much? Why do you always lie? And he goes, excuse me, I'm in the middle of a broadcast. This is against FCC rules, what you're doing right now. And he calls the troopers over there, and the troopers come up the stairs and they're like, yeah, can you just like, why don't you just get out of here? Like they basically tell me to leave, and I know my rights. I have a right to be here, but like I can't assert my rights because they have the guns and the handcuffs, and if they decide to, they can just be like disturbing the peace or something like that,
Yeah.
and just toss you, and then I'm in jail for 60 days. So I have to constantly think about, like, I have two kids. And I'm like, I can't afford to go to jail for, I can't afford, it's not worth it. Nothing's worth it. So I certainly have been, like, in the back of my head, like I'm much more thoughtful and careful. I haven't done any protests. I haven't done any rolling rallies, nothing like that. The stuff that I used to legally be able to do. And I still assert that I'm legally allowed to do those things, but it's just like, I'm not going to jail for it. So fuck it. Once my charges are dropped, then I'll do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, I mean, I'll ask you about both those questions because I'd like to ask about the mental health angle a little bit more, and then I'd also like to talk about the impact of this with respect to your family. I believe you've talked in the past on your channel about mental health issues. Am I correct in that
Oh yeah. I've been pretty
understanding?
upfront about my trials and tribulations for sure.
I talk about depression a fair amount on my channel. I've suffered from clinical depression, and I've talked about it from time to time. So I guess I'll ask you this in two parts. You know, have you found talking about your mental health challenges helpful? And have you found that this has been a significant negative external aggravating factor? Because that would be the thing that I'd worry about, you know, that it would be, you know, the pressure would drive, if it were happening to me, that the pressure would drive my entire depression just down. It would basically shift my entire curve. So I don't know if I'm of stern enough stuff. So have you, you know, had any sort of reactions along those lines?
Yeah, I started seeing a therapist for the first time. I had like a mental breakdown and my first panic attack in early 2021. And then is a long story, but there was some revenge porn involved. I was the victim of it, I guess you'd say. Some shit was released about me by Crazy X, and Massachusetts is actually one of only two states in the country at the time that didn't have a revenge porn law, so it was perfectly legal to do that.
Hmm.
And but shit like that's like traumatizing having that shit out there. So I saw a shrink over it, and then I just kind of stopped going. And then I'm like, oh, I'm fine, whatever. But then once I was incarcerated, I was in the medical wing, so I saw the therapist there pretty regularly. And then when I got out, like it was actually worse when I got out, like because I'm like, my first night out in jail, I slept like a baby in jail. I slept fine, like every night, 8 hours of sleep, exercise. I had a nice little routine in there.
Hmm.
But then when I got out, my first night out, I was so scared of going back that I remember being on the couch and just looking up at the pictures of my kids on the wall who were at the time 6 and 8. And I'm like, I can't ever be away from them again. That was the most painful part, was being away from the kids. And so I'm like, I can't ever be away from them again. And I just couldn't sleep because I was afraid to go to sleep because like I would have nightmares. And so like when I first got out of jail, like I slept 1 hour the first night, I think 3 hours the next night. And then I would just gradually be able to sleep a little bit more, a little bit more. I wasn't eating that much. And I remember just waking up in my sleep a lot, kicking. And like because I would have these nightmares that they would be taking me back to jail, and I would just be fucking fighting it off, and I would wake up like in a sweat, like holy shit, oh fuck. And so that's when I needed to see a therapist. So I have been seeing, I see a therapist once a week, and we talk about all my issues or whatever. My life is complicated, not just with work, but with my personal life. This has obviously affected that. And I mean, I guess kind of my show is therapy, like talking to
Hmm.
all these people, and who are very supportive and very receptive, and it feels good to get it off your chest sometimes.
No, I resonate with that. I find sometimes talking about it to be very helpful. I also the streaming itself, because I enjoy the subject matter. I enjoy law a lot. So the fact that I can talk about something I'm passionate about helps. So I
Mm-hmm.
hope that that's something you resonate with as well. I want to also ask a little bit more about how do you find any struggle in balancing your public persona as Turtle Boy with your roles in your private life, particularly as a parent?
Um, Not really. I mean, I try to keep them separate as much as possible. My kids have no idea what I do other than that I go on YouTube. I don't bother, like, they've heard of Kara Reed. They understand the general concept with it, but I don't think it's age appropriate for them to learn
Uh,
about a murder cover up and police being the bad guys. I don't think they need to learn at this age that the police are the bad guys. I don't think that's helpful for them or healthy, because the police aren't the bad guys. I want them to trust the police in general. I don't think that's a good idea. So, but yeah, I mean, I like to, when I get home, I get my kids on and off the bus every day. And the first thing they do is they tell me about their day, and we play soccer in the backyard or some
that's
shit like
awesome.
that. Yeah. So it's like, I try to, it's a break from it all. And I try to keep it separate. And sometimes you got to put the phone down and get off of Twitter and listen to them and watch a show with them or something like that. And yeah, you got to balance it.
My mod is letting me know that you have something on your channel. I should have asked about your time constraints at the start. So if you need to run,
9:30. So it can go to like 9:25 probably.
all right. So you got 10 more minutes. All
Yeah,
right.
I'm
So I guess I'll open it up for other people in chat if they have other things they want to ask about. I was just enjoying our conversation, and thank you so much for everyone who's here and spending time with us both. I really appreciate it. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to ask that was really important before we turn it over. I think I covered the major ground. Yeah. So, I mean, do you? I guess I'll ask, what is your perception of how the second trial is going versus the first trial? I'll tell you my thoughts and let me know
I
if you
saw your
agree or
thoughts
disagree.
today. You said
Yeah.
on Twitter that you think there's a 2 out of 3 chance he gets convicted. You really believe
Yeah. I mean,
that?
I'm sort of like running. I'm that assessment is based off of basically everything I know about the first trial. So I've seen a lot of these witnesses before, and it's also based on my assessment of how the prosecutor presented what I thought was a very good story. His presentation style and public and his theater style leaves something to be desired. But I thought from a strategic standpoint that he's been laying this out basically perfectly. And so it's like, well, okay, so where is this going? He starts with he starts with these witnesses who will say, I heard her say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. So that's where he starts. He ends with Aperture and anything that he thinks is really strong in terms of the physical evidence. He's his medical examiner, the dog bite expert, and the arc and the Aperture people, and then everything else he sort of throws in the middle and hopes you don't remember. And so then, okay, so then what does the defense do? The defense then does sort of what they did the previous time, except this time they're going to focus a lot more on the elements of reasonable doubt and less on like the conspiracy, which I think is a good idea. So then where do you go from there? Then in closing, it's like, well, the prosecution probably starts with, probably kind of does the reverse. They kind of start with the physical elements of it, the medical examiner, their physicist. The defense gets up there and talks about beyond a reasonable doubt, and then the rebuttal close, the prosecution says, basically the confession and let her words guide you, blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, if all that plays out the way I think it does in my head, you add into that my belief that there's basically a 5 to 10% base chance that they convict just because someone's sitting at the defense table, if not guilty, why guilty shape. You throw in the fact that it's a cop who's dead, and that's got to change the assessment odds. And so I'm like, yeah, 2 out of 3 sounds vaguely correct, but that's why I came up with those numbers in case anyone's curious about the justification for it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I can't imagine that 12 people actually ever coming together and being like, definitely, I feel great about the fact that he was hit by a car beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's it. I don't think that'll ever happen.
You do remember that 8 jurors apparently were ready to convict on manslaughter because of I was there, she was there, therefore she did it. Remember that,
it
right?
was 6 until the Tui Rodriguez charge, and that's because they fucked with the jury too. Like, let's not forget.
Fair enough.
They got rid of 3 jurors who were all not guilty votes, and all one of whom was a lawyer, and who thus has the whose job it is to persuade people, and she's gone. That's a huge loss to the jury, like not just as her vote, but also her ability to get other people to change your vote, to pull a Henry Fonda in there. And so I think that they got away with that the first time. They're not going to get away with it the second time. They're going to ask to see those balls. I've heard that some of these jurors are making faces. You almost want to tell them, cut the shit. They're gonna pull your number, cut the shit. So I just don't ever see a conviction happening. I do think that a retrial is or a hung jury is entirely within the realm of possibilities. I think it's a 50-50 shot, if I'm perfectly honest with you. But I just don't see, the one way a conviction could happen is just if they feel this need to throw the grieving mother a bone, and I think that happened last time. It's like, why don't we just give her a manslaughter? Whatever, like murder. I don't think she murdered him, but like manslaughter, the mother's crying, the mother, you got to give her something. We can't she needs closure, and so, and they're like, look at Karen Read. She's making faces and shit. Kind of fuck her. Even if she didn't do it, fuck her. Like that might be
these factors are sadly non-trivial.
Yeah. And it's like that I guess something like that could happen. I just don't see it happening ever. But a mistrial at this point is almost just as bad, because you're just like, I don't see them stopping. Like, they've made it very clear that and they have unlimited resources, unlike Karen Read, who does have an army of people behind her. But it's like, if you're eventually, like, if they do this 4 or 5 times, like, eventually Alan Jackson's going to say, like, I got bills to pay too. Like, I have other cases. Like, I can't, they're doing this for free, eventually they're going to have to say, I got to go, and I worry about that happening.
Yeah. And then that's a real problem. Let me do some of the super chats. Jillian Pickard became an uncivilian. Luge Meister became an uncivilian. Din Fairbairn became an uncivilian. Maybells became an uncivilian. Kirby's mom, Minion Sharks, became an uncivilian. Rap Breed, uncivilian. Geraldine Ferditch, Daniel James, Lynn Britton, 20 gift memberships. AJ Red Sox, been a member for 23 months. Irrelevant Unloved, $10 from the tree. Godfather, hey, Aidan. Good to see you, old friend. Glad you're doing well and hope things holding down back east. Daughter finally grew into the shirt you sent years ago. Stay safe. Base wishes for you and your family. Then a little picture of a turtle forever. Nice. Tony gifted 20 gift memberships. Kim Jong-un said, hero Kurt, yo have no egg rolls. You come visit, I fix. Okay. Erica said, Turtleboy is a cross between Howard Stern and any other conservative male journalist.
I like that. I think that's a good comparison.
A Pulitzer's in his future. God bless Turtleboy for standing up and being the whipping boy for us all. First Amendment. The First Amendment does protect unpopular speech. And so as long as you stay within the First Amendment bounds, God bless America.
It's specifically USA, why it exists. USA. Because the easy speech, the unpopular speech, that doesn't need protection.
You don't need the First Amendment for popular speech. Exactly.
You don't need that.
Yeah, exactly. Kim Jong-un said North Korea has no problem with journalists. The tree godfather became an uncivilian. Kim Jong-un said no one said Inglorious North Korea. Stinker Bell for $5 said, and yet states will drive around Massachusetts to talk to people who are mean comments about McAlbert's. Yeah, the staties rather will drive around. I apologize. Yes. Yeah.
I hope he asks about that tomorrow. I'll be like, sir, have you ever investigated any rubber duckies? Like, can you tell us? Like, I really freaking hope he brings that up.
I hear tell they make bath time lots of fun.
Yeah. You're the one. I mean, I really hope he does. Because it's relevant, because you're like, compare the effort you put into the rubber duckies to what you did for a dead cop. You guys didn't pull any ring. You couldn't go across the street and ask the guy to look at his ring, but you're tracking down rubber duckies all over the South Shore. Give me a break.
Someone asked if you ever were assigned a witness advocate.
No, but I thought about calling him up, because I'm like, I should have gotten one, right? That's how you know it was bullshit. Like, they were never going to call me. Like, obviously you've seen Hank's case. He had no intention of calling me. He put me on that list so I couldn't come on here.
I'm surprised he didn't give you use and derivative use immunity just for the hell of it.
What is that? What do you mean?
Oh, that he gives you immunity. Use and derivative use would prevent anything you said on the stand from being used against you, but would allow them to prosecute you. So if they gave you use and derivative use immunity, that would allow them to call you to the stand. It would allow them to call you to the stand. They wouldn't be able to use anything you said against you in any future proceeding, but it would allow them to call you to the stand. And so they're be like you, so therefore you can't take the fifth, and therefore they can just kick you out of the courtroom. I'm surprised they didn't,
if he said those things, if he had offered me not immunity, but like not even dropping the charges, but like anything you can say in here can't be used against you in your trial, something like that. Number one. And number two, you get to do your show. Like that was my big thing. I need to be able to do my show and cover this because this is my job. And then I'll testify. But no, Hank was put me on that list with no intention of calling me whatsoever, just so I couldn't do my show. And that I'm not going to put up with. So that's why I pled the fifth.
I appreciate that. No, I mean,
Yeah.
if you have the right, you have the right. I have no objections to that.
Yeah.
It is your rights.
Mhm.
God bless America. 499 from Win says, all I know in Turtleboy stories, but I didn't stop following him until Karen Read, originally from Rhode Island. Now I live in Massachusetts. Michelle says, Kurt, would it be okay if Turtleboy said, I wish upon a star that a particular star falls on Earth, lands in someone's house? It's a gaslight. Or would that be witness intimidation?
Only if
I'm not
they're
sure.
a
Are we
witness.
calling on the star to intimidate then? That's probably okay. Karen Karsten said, so weird Jen watched the window waiting for John O'Keefe and Karen Read. Leska says, his Turtleboy met with victim advocate, apparently didn't get one. And then there were some other gift memberships. And if this was just a DUI case, I wouldn't convict. Yeah, she might have had something to drink. First time in Massachusetts, right?
She admits that.
Yeah. And someone else gave some dollars to say how have jurors been reacting. What is your perception of how jurors have been reacting when you've been in the courtroom?
You know, I was there, I think, for Nuttall and one other, and there was a couple not as obvious as the last jury, but there was a couple on there that were making faces, and I heard those people are still doing it today, and there's a few more joining them. So, like I said earlier, you just kind of want to tell them, like, stop, you're going to get eliminated. Stop. Like, we know, and that's how I know they'll never convict her, is there will always be a couple on there who are just like, what the fuck? The fuck is going like that? After hearing all this shit, they're just like, no fucking way. No way will I ever convict this person of murder. No way.
Well, I mean, you never convict me because, as I say, you're missing one of the essential elements of the crime. It's like, how are you proving that she hit him?
Right.
It's like, it doesn't make sense.
Well, she was
with
there,
with enough force to disable him, but not. And it's like it just hit the arm. That's where the marks are.
Just the arm.
So somehow that, and the arm is on a hinge, which, moves.
I know.
So somehow this creates a disabling wound, but doesn't cause any bruising or anything. It's like, how does this make sense? It just doesn't work in the same universe.
Oh my goodness gracious.
And I also want proof of life on Chloe. I refuse to believe, unless they bring Chloe in or show me a picture of her with today's USA Today or something, I refuse to believe Chloe is still alive. I don't know what dog they got dental impressions of, but it ain't Chloe. I demand further proof.
The defense was not allowed to go and visit. That it was, trust me, bro. Here's a molding of what we claim is Chloe. Therefore, it's like, are you kidding me, dude? This is the best you have to offer, Hank. We'll see.
I don't believe it. I think Chloe's dead.
Yeah, my money's on Chloe's dead, but I guess Chloe could be alive and somewhere in Vermont, but whatever. I mean, the fact that she was rehomed at all tells you everything you need to know.
Tells me a lot, man. It tells me a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll go ahead and wrap up our time. So not that I assume people need to, but why don't you tell people where they can find you, your platforms, social media, what you're covering, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So my website is tbdailynews.com. On Twitter, I am at Dr. Turtleboy, because if Jim Crosby is a doctor, then so am I. And you can follow me on YouTube and subscribe to my channel at Turtleboy Live.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Turtleboy, for joining me. And if you're ever bored and don't want to go into the courtroom that day and want to join me on stream, let me know. The streaming is the fun, because then we get to make all the really sarcastic, fun comments.
All right.
And you can't do that when you're in the courtroom. The streaming is the place to be.
All right. We'll be in touch. Thanks for having me, Kurt.
Appreciate all right, man.